there's a big culture, bro science culture, that tells you about how to put on muscle, how you need to eat to put on muscle. But there are huge, huge things that I've learned personally myself that I think these people in this gym culture, the bro science culture, are just doing to themselves that are destroying their metabolism.
Hmm.
Let's get into calories.
Okay.
Calories in versus calories out. What are your
Hmm.
thoughts around that?
So, okay. Well, this one here, I actually really like this topic. It's incredibly nuanced, and there's just so much, so much to go on. So, at the end of the day, body fat is stored energy. If you consume more energy than you burn, it's stored as fat, right? That's what Gym Bro 101 is. If you go to your local personal trainer, that's what he'll tell you.
Yeah.
But what no one seems to consider about this, well, actually, I shouldn't say no one. All the guys in the carnivore space, they know this very well. But what all these gym bros seem to forget is how you can affect both sides of this equation, right? So if you're consuming, like, and the easiest way to put this is, okay, well, let's give two identical twins. Let's put one of them on a diet of soy protein bars and I don't know what else, Cheerios. And let's put
Yeah.
the other one on 2,000 calories of steak. They can do the exact same workouts, exact same everything. Let's check back on them in a year's time and see who looks better, see who feels better. So intuitively, everyone knows that a calorie doesn't quite equal a calorie. That's the first thing, right? And the thing with how calories are measured is they're done in a closed system. It's a measurement of heat energy. So that's all good and well if us as humans were closed systems. If we were a race car and we're pouring petrol in, sure, that's a closed system. It's a perfect measurement. But when it comes to open systems like us, we don't only use our calories for energy. All of our hormones are built from fats. Protein is what repairs our muscles. So when you're giving yourself these different fuel sources that are being used for bodily functions, it makes absolutely zero sense how people can say that a calorie equals a calorie. And it's like even yeah, the whole calorie argument, it fundamentally is kind of right in the sense like, well, if you eat less energy, you're going to lose weight. But there's so much nuance to it. And the other side of it is hunger. If you have this guy on 2,000 calories, a soy protein bar, and Cheerios, he's going to be
Yeah.
starving all day. The odds that he actually gets lean, it's basically impossible. He's going to be thinking about food. His life's going to be miserable. And one day he's going to run out of willpower and go, oh man, I just need to eat more. And he's going to, ruin his calorie deficit. Whereas the guy in 2,000 calories a steak, he's going to feel full. He's going to be building muscle during this time. His testosterone's going to be high. So, this right here is an example of two people eating the exact same amount of calories. Even if they're doing the exact same amount of exercise, they're going to look and feel completely different. So the calorie model is definitely a flawed system.
Yeah. And the thing that's very scary is that this is like it had this movement or this culture about, it's all about calories and calories out isn't
Mm-hmm.
stopping anytime soon. It's getting
No.
worse. In my opinion, like I've been training and I've been following the fitness space for quite some time. And, the amount of people on social media now pushing this narrative is insane. It
Mm-hmm.
really is. And you know, let's take into consider everyone else's, all the demographics here. Imagine, telling a 50-year-old, middle-aged woman saying it's all about calories in and calories
Mm-hmm.
out. You've got these 18, 20-year-olds telling a 50-year-old saying, just eat a calorie deficit. What about the
Yeah.
poor lady's hormones and all the things that she's going to have to go through?
Uh-huh. It's crazy.
They don't understand it. They don't.
Yeah.
They really don't. And this is, I think this calorie movement is these mob of people. They are very militant, more than the
Mm-hmm.
vegans, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Very much headstrong. It's all about CICO. If you're not, eating in a calorie deficit, you're doing it wrong. And yeah, and that's
Yeah.
how they make money out of it too. They make these programs where you're just eating not just less, but the quality of foods. Oh yeah, just be in a calorie deficit, have half a cup of salad or whatever it is, and think that these people achieve weight loss, but at
Mm-hmm.
the expense of what?
Yeah, that's the thing with these people that preach the whole calories in, calories out, every calorie equals the same. They forget that humans have this thing called emotions. We feel
Yeah.
things. If we don't eat, if we're not satiating ourselves with the right kind of foods, you're going to feel hungry, you're going to feel irritable. If
Yeah.
you're eating lots of carbohydrates, you're going to have these blood sugar crashes. You're going to be
Yeah.
hungry all day. Because we're humans and we feel things, it's certainly not a practical method. If we were robots, then hey, maybe the system, wouldn't be the end of the world. I'm sure the robots would probably get sick too. But,
Yeah.
because we have these things called emotions, it's tough, man. And, in studies, they literally get people. And in one group, they'll say to them, all right, we need you to eat this many calories every single day. And the other group, they say, don't track anything, just don't eat carbohydrates or eat very low amounts of carbohydrates. And they don't tell them to limit their food. But come the end of the study, the people in the low carbohydrate group, all they did was, not eat lots of carbohydrates. They weren't restricting themselves. They lose more weight than the people who are trying to force themselves to restrict their portion sizes.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Definitely
it's
more
insane.
sustainable in a sustainable way too. Like,
Yeah.
people don't realize that when you start to actually lower your carbohydrate intake, and the more lower you go, and the longer you sustain it, the less you crave it.
Absolutely.
Like, it's crazy. Like, I never ever thought that carbohydrates could be that problematic towards your satiety, how you respond to the world, because we were always told that carbs were your main source of energy.
Yeah.
That was that was drummed into my head, you know when I first started learning about health in high school.
Mhm.
Carbs are your main source of energy. Without carbohydrates, you will die, which is true in a
Yeah.
way. It's true.
Yeah.
You mentioned it. Gluconeogenesis takes care of that.
Yeah.
But then in the bro science world, carbs are energy, bro. You need carbs to build muscle. You need carbs, for intense workouts and to make gains. That's the other narrative that they push. What are your thoughts around carbohydrates as a means to, build muscle, your performance? What have you experienced for yourself?
Yeah, well, for me, I've experienced that on carnivore, I recover a lot better. Like I can do a lot more training. I don't get anywhere near as sore. It's only very frequently that I feel anything. I can train a lot harder. And
Yeah.
yeah, like to be honest, I don't notice too much of a difference other than the fact that I have, more energy level in the gym and that I don't get sore. So it's this whole carb narrative is a lot, it's complete garbage. And when you look at what muscle building is at its most fundamental level, it's you go to the gym, you cause micro tears in your muscles, and then protein comes along, repairs these micro tears, and your muscles grow back slightly bigger and stronger. There's no need for carbohydrates in that process. The argument they make is that, well, our muscles are fueled by glycogen, which is
Yeah.
made from glucose. But again, with the gluconeogenesis, we make all the glycogen we need from proteins as well as our own body fats we eat, and lactate, which is a byproduct of exercise. And what's interesting is, let's say there was a study that came out and it showed that people who had been on carnivore for a year versus people in a high carb group, tracking who gains the most muscle. So these people actually were fat adapted. There was no other circumstance holding them back. Even if the people on the high carbohydrate group did gain more muscle, which I don't think would happen at all, but even if they did, let's play this out 10 years. These people are going to be sick. Chances are they're going to be pre-diabetic. They're going to have all this inflammation. Whereas the carnivore people, 10 years later, they're going to be incredible. So this whole, and the people that push this, high carbohydrate, 500 grams of carbohydrates per day people, these guys are on steroids. So when they destroy their natural testosterone levels by causing chronic systemic inflammation, it doesn't matter because they just inject themselves with a bunch more and who cares? Whereas for your average natty gym bro who's not doing this stuff, when you plummet your testosterone levels, you're screwed. In studies, they'll get people. One group, they'll tell them, you got to work out this many times, hard workouts, do whatever you can to gain muscle. And the other group, they say, here, mate, here's some steroids. The steroid group gains more muscle than the people working out hard and training. They're not even doing weights, but they gain more muscle. So that's how important these hormones are. So when all these big influencers who are taking all this gear get online and say, oh, a calories a calorie, doesn't matter, and they tank their own hormones, to them it doesn't matter. But to the average viewer, it's a big problem. So, that's a whole you need carbohydrates, right? It's based on nothing. We're seeing more and more studies coming out of fat-adapted athletes, performing better in long distance. I'm sure at some point we'll get, more and more low-carb muscle-building studies. But, just anecdotally, there's a lot of keto guys, a lot of top natural bodybuilders who are keto guys. Yeah, complete garbage, this whole you need carbohydrates notion.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's a really good point too about, the average person. If you think about and this is another narrative that they push, this work harder, sort of train hard mentality that you've got to train, 3, 4, 5 times a week, hours and hours and hours on end. Like, yes, you're going to get a really good physique from that. And I've seen natty, bodybuilders and they've got amazing physiques. But how sustainable do you think that really is in the long term? Like, just to me, these guys, they put themselves through the grinder to get down to, let's say, under 10% body fat. And they're doing that on a high carb diet. Can you imagine the cravings that you'd be getting?
See, that's the thing with
really good for you. I don't think so.
So that's the thing with all of these fitness guys, right? Is they all have food addictions. And I say this because I was that guy. Like, whenever I used to get lean on a high carb diet, the second I started bulking, I'd be like, what? I'm eating 3,500 calories a day, gaining some mass slowly. I'll be fat in like 2 weeks. I just couldn't control myself. That's why you see all these 10,000 calorie challenges and, post-show binges. These guys pretend they're doing it for the camera. They're so addicted to food. And that's why that's why all these guys come the off season. They are this is what happened to me whenever I was on a high carbohydrate diet. Come the off season, I would get very fat, unintentionally, just because I was so addicted to food. I deprived myself for so long, and my body was just starving. Whereas on carnivore, like, I can stay completely lean all year round. I went on a bulk about maybe 9-10 months back, something like that, and I gained a lot of size. But I was eating ridiculous amounts of food. I was walking around full all day. I was probably eating, if calories are real, close to 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day. Whereas, and that was like, oh my goodness, like, I was stuffing myself, eating heaps of food very consciously. Whereas in the past, when I, bulked after getting lean, I would eat 4,000 or 5,000 calories, and I'd still be hungry, So it's, all these guys are addicted to food. So that's their problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny you say that because I used to compete in powerlifting too, and making weight for comp. That was you put yourself through the ringer just to make weight, and post comp you're going out, you're doing a binge, and that was something that a lot, like, people might want to disagree with me in this, but that's what a lot of these athletes look forward to. They look forward to these big meals. Like, you look at these boxers, MMA fighters, after they weigh in, I always see on their social medias, they're chomping on, a fucking, triple cheeseburger, a 6-pack of, Krispy Kreme donuts after weigh-in or after their performance. Like that, these guys are addicted. And so that is the problem I really want to highlight to people. Like, you've got this image of someone who is a competitive athlete, looks, aesthetically to be someone that you think, wow, this guy must be healthy. But me and you both know, like, when you look, that's just superficial. When you start to look at how it impacts your health long term, it makes you really think, man, this is a dangerous, to me, I think it's a dangerous message to push out to your everyday person.
100%, man. It's and when you look at disease rates, right? If we go back to the year 1900, cancer, about 6% of people would get in their lifetime. Now it's at 40%. 42% of people will get cancer at some point in their lifetime. So all these bodybuilders who are going calories a calorie. Okay. But what about all these people that are getting these chronic diseases from the foods that you're telling them it's fine to eat? And what's the most insane thing to me is how people don't understand how science works. They think science is this, it's completely correct. It's science, of course. Yeah. And so you have all these gym bros online who don't know the first thing about, how any mechanism in the body works. And they go, well, actually, these sweeteners in these drinks, they're safe. They're the most researched ingredient in the world, and the vast majority of the studies show they're safe. And so, who's funding these studies? Well, obviously the drink company. And what a lot of people don't understand is that studies don't always appear in the daylight. You are under no legal obligation, if you're a private institution, to do a study, and if it doesn't give you favorable results, no one sees it. So all you have to do is repeat the same study over and over again. And chance acting alone, one study is going to find that between the two groups there wasn't much of a difference, and it shows that your drink's safe because there's no difference between the group that did have it and didn't have it.
Yeah.
And you repeat this exact same study over and over, keep chucking them in the bin, the scientists are on your payroll, and you keep repeating this process. Next thing you know, you have 50 studies showing that this ingredient is safe, and you have a bunch of people who don't understand how any of this works that will go online and say, look how many studies there are that show it's safe. It must be safe.
Absolutely.
The illusion of nutrition science.
Absolutely. And this is where I want to give a shout out to Professor Bart Kay for this, because he's the one that's really highlighted all. He's the man, and he's highlighted all this in his platform. And the one thing I took from it is that a lot of us don't know shit about science.
Yeah.
I didn't know until I actually started to listen to the professor, started listening to Dr. Chafee, and you start to realize, man, how flawed is nutrition science. You're right. Like, who do you think funds these big studies?
Yeah.
Crazy.